Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Relaxed and Fast. We're mixing it up a little bit today. We're going to try a new format. Wanted to share some of my favorite books with you. So the plan is to cover multiple different types of books. Some will be running related, some will be on mental fitness, some will be on program building. Hopefully you enjoy it. If you've got other suggestions, please feel free to contact us and let us know what you'd like to see out of us. But ultimately, if you like what you see in here, please give us a 5-star review on whichever platform you listen on. And then if you're on YouTube, please like and subscribe. Hope you all enjoy it. Thanks. All right, everybody. First up in our book review series is going to be my favorite book of all time, Once a Runner by John L. Parker Jr. It's kind of a cult classic. I had a bunch of the older guys that I used to run with back in the day suggest that I read it. It is the story of a collegiate distance runner named Quentin Cassidy. It is set back in the 70s, and it's his quest of trying to break the 4-minute mile. He and his teammate Jerry Meisner, who was an All-American, they attend Southwestern University, and they befriend a older gentleman who's a doctoral candidate who also happens to be the Olympic gold medalist. I think one of the biggest reasons why this is my favorite book is that it's so easily to relate to it. I can 100% see myself as Quentin Cassidy. I read it for the first time while I was a sophomore in college. I have reread it many times since then. While I was in college and grad school, I would pretty much read it every year. It's a really easy book to read. It has very short chapters. It's one of those that I just couldn't put it down. I remember sitting in class and just being excited to get back to my dorm room and continue to read. There were multiple times where I would read chapters right before workouts and just be so fired up to go run in the workouts. The first part of the book does a great job of going into character development and background. Parker is a very eloquent writer. He does a great job of building the story and developing all of the role players in the book. Honestly, to me, I'm not as big into the character development. There were parts of it that were a little slow. While he does a great job with it, when I've gone back and reread it, I've actually skipped ahead and passed over some of those chapters, because once you know who the characters are, it's not as big of a deal. But I like to get into the meat of the running portions of the book, and that's kind of where my love of the book kind of lies. But ultimately, one of those early introduction chapters is introduction of Bruce Denton, and that section talks about The Secret, and it's about a page long, but it's a really good example of what it truly takes to be a great distance runner. I'm going to read part of that excerpt for you. Over the course of several years at Southeastern, as Denton's reputation grew, a number of undergraduate runners decided they would train with him, thinking to pick up on The Secret. The new man showed up on the first day expecting all manner of horrific exertion, and was generally stunned and giddy to find he could so easily make it through one of Denton's calendar days. Showing up the second morning at 6:30, he would be in good cheer, perhaps trying to imagine how he would handle the pressure of his incipient fame. That day went well enough, but he would begin to notice something peculiar. There was no let-up. The tempo was always moderate but steady. If the new guy decided to pick up the pace, that is where it stayed. Whether he finished with the group or not, you show off at your own peril. On the third day, assuming the new man made it that far, his outlook began to darken. For one thing, he was getting very, very tired. No particular day wore him out, but the accumulation of steady mileage began to take its toll. He never quite recovered fully between workouts and soon found himself walking around in more or less a constant state of fatigue, depression, a phase Denton called breaking down. The new runner would find it more tedious than he could bear. The awful truth had begun to dawn on him. There was no secret. His days would have to be spent in the exactly this manner, give or take a mile or two, for longer than he cared to dwell upon. If he really wanted to see the olive wreath up close, it was going to be the most difficult, heart-rendering process he would endure in the course of his life. At that point, most of them drifted away. They searched within themselves, somewhere along a dusty 10-mile trail, or during the bad part of a really gut-wrenching 440 on the track, and found some key element missing. Sheepishly, they would begin to miss workouts, then stop showing up altogether. They would convince themselves, there must be another way. There has to be. The attrition rate was nearly 100%. While the whole book is truly a masterpiece, my three favorite chapters are the interval workout, the orb, and the race. I don't want to give away too many spoilers, but the workout is definitely an epic effort. Quentin runs with Bruce barefoot on a grass track around a field starting in the evening, and he ends by himself, only lit by the moonlight. A little excerpt from this chapter. Round and round the field they went, each repetition so much like the one before they had to count out loud, at least they forget, how many they had done. Denton, the true obsessive-compulsive, would assume they had done 3 rather than 4, and they would take a chance on doing an extra one. Cassidy, therefore, paid close attention to the tally. The only difference between one and the next was a slight increase in lactic acid in the lifting muscles on top of the thigh that made each a little more difficult and started hurting earlier in the sprint. Otherwise, it was almost easy to drift into a near-neutral mental state, as was on their long-distance runs. Denton was the perfect training partner. The pace did not vary more than a half a second from one to the next. The orb is a really cool concept where they talk about how there's an orb inside of you that holds all of the pain and anguish that builds throughout the race. And then once you cross the finish line, the orb breaks and dissipates. The act of breaking the orb is why we keep coming back to racing again and again, because we truly can't remember how much it really hurts to give that full-on effort. A couple of quick sentences. Denton was right about it. You could think about it all you wanted, but you couldn't feel it again until you were there. Another one is, every miler knows it in the way a sailor knows the middle of the ocean. That it's not the first lap, but the third that is furthest from the finish line. Races are won or lost here. Records are broken or forfeited to history. Careers are made or ended. The third lap was a microcosm not of life, but of bad times, the times to be gotten through, the no toys at Christmas, sitting at the bus station at midnight blues times, to look back on, and however weakly laugh at if you can. The third lap was to be endured and endured and endured. The race is also an epic tale. It really starts with the warm-up and goes all the way through breaking the tape at the end. And this is just another one of those where I think every runner can relate to every single part of the chapter. From the familiar warm-up loop to the butterflies to the sights and sounds and smells of a track meet. The race itself is just so spot on. The internal battles of giving a max effort and having someone else in the race who's potentially better than you, and how to manage all of those different things. It's just, it really is a pretty incredible chapter. Once again, to try not to give too much away, I'll read a little bit of the race chapter. Third call for the mile. All milers report to the starter. The last leap of his heart jounced him as he heard the announcement, but by now he was accustomed to the shock. He made no move for the starting line, nor did any of the other milers. The high hurdles hadn't even been run, and there would be several minutes of confusion afterwards while the timers sorted things out. The milers knew all these ancient rhythms. so they kept doing their strides and jogging. The gun cracked for the highs, and they looked across the track in the mildest sort of curiosity. After the hurdles had swept past the finish line, the announcer was after them again. All milers report to the start line immediately. Last call for the 1 mile run. It no longer jolted him because it was all jolt now. So once again, that is my review of Once a Runner. It really just is an epic tale. It's actually part of a trilogy. So Racing in the Rain is the first one. Once a Runner is the second one, and then Again to Carthage is the last one. The first one was written back in the 70s. The last one, the last two were written in mid to late aughts. And so a little bit of a time gap between them, but they're all about Quentin Cassidy. John L. Parker Jr. also has Runners and Other Dreamers, which is also a very good book, and he talks about just some different running tales and such like that. So, but anyways, that is the first book review. So hopefully you enjoyed it. Hopefully you get something out of it. If you haven't read Once a Runner, please do. Hopefully if you've read it, I did it justice. So thanks again for tuning in, and hope to talk to you soon.